right, welcome back to Fleshing It Out with Samantha Spittle, Career Edition. We are we're interviewing entrepreneurs and career employees. I'm not even sure what to call it. So I'm here today with Sarah White. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Samantha, for having me.
Sarah, so as we get started, why don't you tell everyone what you do, kind of your career field, and a little bit about what it is?
So I run 4 restaurants here locally. 3 of them are franchised, and one of them is our own baby that we're working with. So my job is mostly to just make sure they keep running, make sure the doors are open, we have the food that we need, we have the staff we need, and take care of issues as they arise. I definitely have worked my way up, everything from bussing and waiting tables to where I am today. So a lot of restaurant expertise in any area, really.
I love that because, so many, especially young people, can get started in that industry with, as you said, bus staff, wait staff. So I'm excited to talk to you to kind of see how do you actually move up in that career field? So
all you have to do is want it. Everywhere you look, there's a restaurant. All you have to do is want it.
That is so true. So with what you did, what kind of education, training, certifications were required as you started moving up that career path?
So ironically, I was paying for college waiting tables is how I got into the restaurant in the first place. And it turned out that I love restaurants and I hate college. I know it's for a lot of people. I have a sister with a master's degree. My mom graduated college, but it wasn't for me. And so I just learned that I wanted to move up in a restaurant or in a service field. I really enjoyed taking care of people. And you don't have to have a college degree to go the restaurant route. You definitely can. It can make your life easier, but it's also a lot of fun to learn with your hands on everything. So I went through and learned how to be a server and just became the best server that I could, and learned how to manage a kitchen and work the line and just became the best line person that I could. Don't come to my house to cook. I should just preface by saying that, but I can do the structured cooking in a kitchen, making things correctly, and I love to learn. And then just moving up. So in Virginia, you have to have a food handler certification. So making sure that I took the test and understood proper safety with food. So any manager of any restaurant in Virginia has to have that. But that's really the only certification required. Past that, it can be very on-the-job training. Some of your chain restaurants have some of the best ways to move up. Your local stores also, but people tend to stay with them very long-term. So getting into a chain restaurant, if you really want to move your career forward, it can be great learning.
That's great. I love what you said about how it's not, every path for us, even as adults, and especially if your kid is not the same for everyone. And I never realized that the restaurant industry had such variety. So
yeah, absolutely.
And what does a typical day look like? So for you, kind of, I think as you move up into management, then what is your typical day like?
So first, you should know in a restaurant that whether you're a server or a kitchen person or a manager, there's no typical day. You don't know what's going to walk through the door next. You may have 5 guests come in today and you may have 500, and you don't know what a typical day is going to look like. And that's part of the fun. That's why we do it. We love that. But, as a typical day, you're going to show up for your shift ready to go, ready to serve 500 people regardless, right? So if you're always on and you're always ready, it doesn't matter if you get hit, you're ready for it. So just being prepared is a lot of it. And we have a lot of checklists. We are checklist people. You have an opening checklist. You have a midday checklist and a closing checklist. You're going to know exactly what your tasks are. You're going to get everything straight. And then so much of it is personality and interacting with people. So from the time you walk through the door at a restaurant, the host should be greeting and inviting, and you should want to be there. Your server should make you want to come back to see them. You should have a dish that might not be your favorite, but you're willing to try a different one because your server was so fantastic. Your manager should be dropping by and saying, hey, how was everything? Or at least be visible. And then your kitchen might not be interacting with the guests, but you can tell when someone in the kitchen is in a terrible mood putting your food out. It just doesn't have the same love on a plate that it does when they want to be there. So it's really important to create an environment that everybody wants to be in, that people want to play on your team. And that's what we try to do every day.
That's awesome about the team dynamic. That it's so important. And I think that's true in almost, any career field. It's that when you have that team player environment, it's really important.
That's the first thing I ask, because I can train you how to wait a table. I can train you how to cook in the kitchen. I can train you how to manage, but I can't train you to want to be there. And I can't train you to want to play with the other people.
That reminds me is for a restaurant, you mentioned the tasks and you mentioned all the different positions. Do restaurants have opportunities for people with different ability levels, if they're people with disabilities and whatnot, to kind of find a place to win in a restaurant?
Absolutely. So one thing that we have done is we have a friend with some challenges who comes in and helps us keep our beer stocked and rotated, who helps us come in and he can greet tables for us and take people to a table. And he's part of our family. He's been here longer than I have. Like, we can do anything from, finding positions for you, because there's always something that you can do and you can contribute. And a restaurant's a family. We're going to include anybody who wants to be part of our family. That's just the way that it is. And then, from busing and coming in at a very entry level or hosting, pretty much anyone can take someone to a table and say hello and be friendly.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty entry level. It can pay well and it's fun. Yeah.
I love what you said too about a family, because my tip for, like, if kids are watching is you put, what you put in, you get out. But also, like, it's, you'll hear as you get older with careers, like, if things aren't the right fit. So I love that you're so passionate about that family feel, because if someone's not getting that, like, there could be another restaurant that has that family feel that you can get, because I love your passion for it, and that's the kind of environment you want to be a part of, and you want to be a team player with that. So.
Exactly. And I want you to be somewhere that you're happy. Like, I feel like in a restaurant, I can teach you a lot of skills that can translate to the rest of the world. It doesn't have to be a restaurant the rest of your life, but it can be a great place to get a foundation. Ultimately, I want you to be where you want to be. I've helped people get into positions with the government. I've helped people in lobbying, things that you would think have nothing at all to do with a restaurant, but they learned skills and got the right expertise of people. Because people is always good.
Yes. Like I've said, working in this, I think everyone, so kids out there, I think, like, everyone needs to work in the service industry at some point in their life, because the skills that you get, the compassion, the empathy you get for people, working through that. But then I love that there's career possibilities too. So I appreciate you.
Well, everybody eats.
Yes.
So think of the people you're going to meet. Everybody eats. I've met NHL hockey players. I've met bands. And all just working at restaurants.
And they're just people. They're just people. So what are your favorite and least favorite parts of your job?
I love the spontaneity. I love the fact that you don't know what's coming and you get to be excited, and we're a family. We're going to face it together. We're like battle buddies, we're going to go out. We're going to do this together. So that's a lot of fun. I hate office work. I hate being in front of a computer for hours, entering inventory or looking over numbers from last week to figure out what we need to fix. And, like, it's part of my job and I get it all done. But if I had my choice, I'd never be in an office.
Always on the go. It's funny. You hear the term in restaurants, in the weeds, I'm like, that's the industry term, right? It's like, yeah, it's that camaraderie. Anything else career related that you think would be valuable for the high school students to know, or wish you had known at their age?
Definitely. So I wish I had known that try it. Just try it. If I had tried it a little sooner, I could have avoided some other jobs that maybe didn't work out for me, because from restaurants, I've seen a lot of people find where they're headed. It might not even be their end goal, but it will help you, like I said, meet people, know more things about the service industry in general, and figure out where you want to go. Maybe the one thing you learn is that you hate it, but you learned something, and it will help you meet other people, a lot of other people, to get you to where you want to go. So I wish I had tried that a little sooner. And the other thing is that you really can move up at whatever pace that you want to. And nobody ever told me that. So I spent a lot of time just kind of swimming around, being the best server I could, but I didn't realize the opportunities to move up were right in front of me. So if you want it, make sure your managers know you want it. And that's not just restaurants, any industry that you're on. If you want it and you don't tell anybody you want it, they'll never know.
That is great Great advice. Sarah, thank you so much. This wraps up our part 1, and I'm going to ask a few questions for part 2, but thank you so much for, I think your passion for the restaurant industry is so enlightening, because as I said, I think it just opens up such a world of possibilities for young people to see. So
absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Some bonus questions. So part 2, I wanted to ask Sarah some bonus questions. And so, we kind of talked with the restaurant industry about how many opportunities and how many different career paths you can take. And I love, Sarah mentioned in part 1 about, it may not be your career, but it can get you to the next step. And I'm a firm believer that everything we do is like, it's a step forward, fail forward. You may think,
Absolutely.
oh, it's not for me. So what misconceptions do you think people have about the restaurant industry, working in that field?
That it's a dead end. The one thing I hear all the time is, oh, they work in a restaurant. That's just a dead end. They're just hanging out there until they find their real job. Well, I got news. It's a real job. Some of us make a career out of it. And I know career servers that are there, or a career kitchen that are there for forever. And that's what they love to do. They might switch restaurants, but they're really passionate about that. And that's great. They make good money and they do something they love, because who are you with most of your waking day? Your work friends, your work family. So you got to love it. But the other thing is that there's always room to move up. There's always, clear up to owning your own restaurant or owning your own chain and do your own thing. Like, it is not a dead end, and there is no end in sight for what you can do.
That's great. And I'm glad you brought that up too, because I think there's always like this stereotype of what we should be doing. And the thing is that there's jobs that might fit for your personal life, like being a server, like the one benefits, like so correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like the flexible hours, quicker cash, all this kind of stuff. Like, it's so easy for other people to decide, what could be a good fit, but it truly comes down to what's a good fit for you and your family and your circumstances. So.
Exactly. There's not a lot of other jobs that you can walk in, work 4 hours for a shift on the schedule that you picked, and walk out the door with as much money as you would make in an office job.
Mm-hmm. It's that quick turnaround. What would people be surprised to learn about your field? We've kind of covered that, because I think I have already been, I think all the possibilities I know for me personally, but what about you?
Well, I think that the surprising part is that it's lifelong friends and family. I worked for a restaurant in my hometown that's a chain restaurant, and every time I go back there, often don't tell my mom, but before I go see her, I jump in and see my family and say, hey, how's everybody doing? It's so good to see you, because I can get a bunch of them in one place if they know I'm coming to town. So you build lifelong friendships and family the way that you would in school or anything else. Like, we stick together.
That's so true, because when you're in the weeds together, bonds are formed over that team mentality.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny how having a really bad night, you're having the worst night, your kitchen crashed, ticket times are 45 minutes, and you're short staffed, but the 5 of you that made it through that shift together, you go have a drink afterward, you go hang out afterward, and that's your family. You made it.
Yep, you made it. That's the thing. That's when courage is built, when you go through that hard stuff, then you get the courage afterwards. So,
and it's what keeps you together. It's what keeps you going. In the middle of it, when you're like, I can't do this, I should just walk out the front door. You look at the person beside you and you're like, I'm not letting them down.
Mm-hmm. You got to count on each other. So what would be the greatest or the most rewarding part of your career?
It's funny that the most rewarding thing for me, no matter what position I take in the restaurant, is seeing someone who comes in having the worst day and giving them food and attention and love that they need through feeding them, and watching them walk out with a different mindset on the way out the door. Just really quick, for instance, I had a kid come in one day with his mom, and I was their server, and he had been picked on and bullied at school all day. And it was very early in the semester, and he didn't want to go back. He wanted to quit school. He thought he was never going to be anything. And to sit down, and we talked for a few minutes. He told me what he did like, and we found his favorite food, and that's why he was at our restaurant, because we had his favorite dish. We made it perfect. All of my staff walked by to say, hey, how's it going? What are you going to play? We knew that he played baseball. Like, what position are you playing? And we all talked to him. And by the time he walked out, his mom was in tears. She was like, you turned his whole day around. Like, we couldn't have done it without you.
That's
That will
amazing.
never, ever change. That's no matter what position I get in the restaurant, being able to do that
Mm,
with someone is
that's
the most
awesome.
rewarding.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. That was really great. And then to wrap it all up, thank you, Sarah, for all the great information. So if people are kind of wondering, could this be a field for me? I think you answered it earlier, because try it, anybody. But is there certain gifts or talents or things like that that help people excel in your field?
Well, knowing where to go into the restaurant is going to be key. So if you are introverted and you don't want to be the cheerleader at every table that walks through the door, knowing to go maybe to the kitchen area where you'll get your little family, you'll have your few people, you'll interact with the people out front some as they come through, but you kind of have your own space is important. But if you are that person that needs to talk to everybody in a room, you want to be in the front. So it's just learning maybe which section to go to, but there's always a home for everyone. And I know Lost Dog Cafe, which is one of mine, I have 3 of those. We're always looking for people that are entry level and just want to learn, because we really love teaching people. We love to help you find that it is for you or it isn't. But my team takes in everyone, and we've seen people come in with little to no experience with any of it and really come out experts. So just try it.
That's awesome. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. Your advice was invaluable, if that's the right way to say it. I think that, I thought I knew about the restaurant industry, but I feel like I learned something new. And I love that. I love the family and the cohesiveness, and that anyone can find a place to win. So
Yes,
I appreciate you. And if people want to get in touch with you or one of your restaurants, how can they do that?
all right. So I have the Lost Dogs in McLean, South Arlington, and Dunloring. So if you are looking for a job, I highly encourage you to come in and check us out. If you're just wanting to find out a little bit more about what we're about, go to social media. Hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and any of those that you hit, you're going to get me.
Awesome. Well, Sarah, thank you again. And I look forward to getting to know you and your restaurants more in the future.
You as well, Samantha. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.